Now, in earlier weeks, we introduced the layered view of networking. We called that the OSI model, and we identified the application layer as the highest level in that model. In this module, we move beyond naming the layer and focus on what is actually done in real systems. This lecture examines how networked applications operate, why they live at the network edge, and how architectural choices made at the application layer shape our scalability, performance, and reliability. Now, the application layer is where the internet becomes visible to everyone. Every click, every message, every stream, or request begins and ends on this end system, and devices users directly control. Routers and switches in the middle never understand the meeting, they only move the packets forward. That's an important distinction that you need to realize when we go through networking architecture. What gives communication meaning are application layer protocols. These protocols define the expectation, who speaks first, what messages look like, and how systems respond to success or failure. Without these shared rules, distributed applications would simply not function. At its core, the internet does not exist to move packets off for their own sake. It exists to satisfy the application's intent, retrieving information, delivering media, coordinating services, and connecting those people together. One of the internet's most powerful design choices is keeping the network core simple. Routers are deliberately limited to forwarding packets based on addressing information at the IP level, without inspecting or interpreting the application data. That's an important distinction. You have to remember that it doesn't care what's inside the actual network, what's inside the actual data. It only cares about moving the packets from one point to another. By preventing user applications from running inside the core, the internet avoids constant infrastructure upgrades. Innovation happens at the edge, where developers can deploy new ideas without negotiating changes to global routing hardware. This makes it seamless and much easier, a much simpler design. This design, however, trades centralized control for flexibility. This enables rapid growth and experimentation across the entire internet as a whole. Now, networked applications are inherently distributed, meaning no single system has full control over the execution. Each participant, each machine operates independently and must rely on communication to coordinate behavior. This coordination happens through message exchanges, not shared memory or direct execution. Messages become the only way systems influence one another across the network. Protocols provide the shared language that makes this possible, defining our structure, the meaning, and timing for every interaction. Think about it this way, okay? Here you are, you speak English, or at least I hope you do, right? So you're speaking English, and we have rules for the English language. If we speak French, it's not like every word directly translates for word to word. There's symbionces, right? There's little framing, there's different changes associated with the French language as opposed to the English language. It is the same way in the internet structure. At the application layer, architecture determines how systems interact. This includes who initiates communication, where data is stored, and how responsibilities are divided. These decisions directly impact scalability, reliability, and manageability. A design that works for a small user base may fail catastrophically at a global scale. This is an important distinction. Not everything is a one-size-fits-all. As a result, architecture selection is always a trade-off rather than a search for a perfect solution. There is no perfect solution, especially as technology moves forward. Now, in a client-server model, servers remain continuously available and provide services upon request. However, clients depend on these servers for data, computation, and coordination. This architecture simplifies management, security enforcement, and data consistency, and administrators know exactly where critical logic resides within these systems. However, concentration of responsibility also concentrates or creates bottlenecks and single points of failure as our demand grows. Peer-to-peer communication is a little bit different. Instead of going from a client to a server, we're going from a computer to a computer. Think about those old Xboxes that you would use. If you're old like me, you did a direct connection. You did a literal Ethernet cable from an Xbox 360 over to an Xbox 360, and we had peer-to-peer connection. That's what we're talking about, okay? We remove the centralized control by allowing end systems to communicate with each other directly, and each participant contributes resources while also consuming the resources. As a new peer joins, total system capacity increases, allowing those systems to scale naturally as opposed with a client-server relationship. This flexibility, however, comes at a cost of complexity, particularly in coordination, security, and availability. And what we're saying here is that, yeah, it works great for peer-to-peer when you're talking about 1, 2, 3, even 4 or 5 devices. Once you start getting above that, it becomes exponentially harder. It becomes exponentially more difficult to do it. And this is where client-server relationship really kind of comes into play. All right, imagine a team tasked with designing a global file sharing system. A centralized server model offers visibility and control, but traffic quickly overwhelms that single infrastructure. A peer-to-peer alternative spreads the load across users, reducing our infrastructure cost and improving scalability. Yet the same distribution introduces uncertainty as availability, trust, and performance are now dependent upon users rather than the server. I can't control users, I can't control a server. All right, this scenario highlights that architectural decisions are not abstract diagrams. They directly determine how systems behave under load, how they fail, and how they recover. Many large-scale outages are not caused by bugs, but architectural limits being reached long before users experience slowdowns or failures. Those outcomes are already encoded into the design. Think about any video game you've ever played. Final Fantasy, I think it was 14. First came out. We were really super excited. My wife and I bought it. We bought the pre-press and everything. Could not handle the load. The architectural design was not there. That's how it failed. It wasn't because of a bug. They literally did not have the infrastructure to support the many users. All right. This module focused on what the application actually does rather than how it's labeled in the model. That's an important distinction. Applications live at the edge, depend on the protocol coordination, and are shaped by extra architectural choices. These ideas form the foundation for understanding specific application layer protocols and the traffic patterns that we are going to analyze as we move forward.